Hello students. So after completing about the introduction about the fuel injection system of diesel engine and then talking about the filters of diesel engine, now our next topic will be the diesel fuel injector, which is also known as your atomizer. So the purpose of a fuel injector is to inject small volume of fuel in a fine spray and to assist in bringing each droplets in contact with sufficient oxygen to give quick and complete combustion. I'm sure everybody must have played with pipes, water pipes. So we know whenever we place our finger in front of a water pipe, if the water is flowing outside, when we place our fingers, then what happens to the water flow? The water flow, the velocity of the water flow increases, plus equal mark, the water will be flowing toward larger distance. For a, if I put if I put my fingers, the flow will be towards covering a larger distance, and also the velocity will be very high. So the same thing happens over here. The fuel injector not only gives fuel, but it completely sprays fuel into the engine, where there is oxygen. And due to the spraying mechanism, it is as the velocity is very high, due to that it mixes up with the molecule of the fuel, mixes up with the molecules of oxygen, so that it can be easily burned down. We already know the in which stroke your diesel is sprayed. After the completion of the second stroke, that is your compression stroke, when the air is completely compressed, at that end point only your diesel is sprayed into the engine. So the air is so much compressed that when a small particles of fuel in high velocity, when it comes to this highly pressurized oxygen molecules, they immediately burn down, and hence the expansion stroke happens. So let us see a fuel injector. This is the diagram of your fuel injector. Let me show you in a bigger picture. Here there is a fuel injector. You can see the parts. On top of it is a filling pin. Then there is adjusting screw. And the center is a spindle. This is the spindle which has a nozzle at the end of it. There is the spindle having a nozzle valve. This is the nozzle body, and at the end of it there is a nozzle. We all know nozzle is nothing but a very small opening type of structure, just like your funnel. Everybody must have seen an oil funnel. At the end of the cross section keeps on decreasing, and at the end there is just a small opening. Similarly is a nozzle. The cross section keeps decreasing, and the end there is just a small tiny bit of opening. This spindle, this nozzle body is seated on the spindle, and this spindle is connected with a spring at the top. This is the spring at the top of the spindle. And this one is your fuel passage. This is the diesel passage. So you can see this is the passage of the diesel. It goes inside from here. Then this is the passage. This is your passage. It's going down. It's coming down. The fuel comes down, covering the spindle, the nozzle body, and here till here. See, at this point you can see the passage of the oil, the fuel, is completely surrounding the nozzle. As the fuel is coming in a tiny passage, it's a very thin passage. So for sure, the pressure of the fuel is very high. Due to this high pressure of the fuel, as it is now covering the nozzle, it is surrounding the nozzle. Due to this high pressure, what happens? It pushes up the nozzle. Due to the high pressure, this nozzle, when it is seating here, it goes up. As this nozzle goes up, you can see it will go up, and this passage, this point opens up. When the nozzle is going up, this point opens up and the fuel can easily swipe into the engine. This is how it sprays into the engine. From a very small opening, the fuel will be flowing into the engine in spray. Just like a spray of water, the fuel will be spraying into the engine. So when the nozzle is going up, I can see the complete spindle will move up. This whole thing is moving up. Till what point it will move on? It will go up, so till the spring can handle. The spring, as now it is in free, this is the free length, and when the spindle goes up, the spring will deforms and it will be holding the spindle likewise. Till the time the spring can hold, that means when the fuel pressure, as it is flowing down, the pressure of the fuel will slowly decrease. It will decrease as much when the spring pressure will be higher now. When the fuel pressure decreases, now the spring pressure will be higher, due to which the spring will now release the spindle. When the spindle is released, again the spindle will go down. The spindle will be coming down when the spring releases it. This spindle come down, and hence what will happen to the nozzle? The nozzle will come and again it will sit at the opening. When the nozzle sits at the opening closes, and then there will be no more fuel flow into the engine. The fuel flow will stop. This is how a continuous movement of fuel goes on. When the fuel pressure is high, the nozzle will go up, and when the spring pressure is high, the nozzle will go down. This complete oscillations marks the spraying of fuel into the engine to the compressed air. Also, it can be marked over here. You can see there is this another passage. This is the second passage. What happens? Sometimes some of the oil is let to pass to in this direction, just surrounding the nozzle body, surrounding this valve, surrounding the spindle. The air is allowed to pass upwards. Sorry, the fuel is allowed to pass upwards, and as the fuel, it's diesel, it can lubricate this different parts. So for lubrication purpose only, the fuel is allowed, some part of the fuel is allowed to go up, so that it lubricates all the parts, the spindle, the spring, and then with this passage it goes out to the fuel tank again. So this is your inlet fuel passage by which it goes into the engine. And the second passage is for the outlet of the fuel, which went up to lubricate all different parts. I have a small video I can show you. See, again, this is your fuel injector or the atomizer. This is the passage. This one is your spring. This is the spindle, and this is your nozzle. I'll show you. See, this is how the fuel is entering inside the passage, the very thin passage. As the passage is very thin, due to that pressure, the pressure increases, and this pressure now, due to this pressure, this will act on the nozzle. Due to this high pressure, the nozzle will move up. When the nozzle moves up, this opening opens and the fuel is sprayed into the engine in smaller atoms. As the spindle is now, or due to the spring force, it is held. When the spring force become higher, this pressure is suddenly decreases. Just like you saw over here, see. the nozzle is coming back to its position. Show you again. When the pressure here decreases and the spring pressure increases, the nozzle comes back to its position, and the air flow, the fuel flow, see, there is no more fuel flow into the engine. This is how it works. And similarly, you can see some amount of fuel is going through to lubricate all different parts. This is only for lubrication purpose, and after lubricating from the second passage, it goes out to back to the fuel tank. So this is your fuel injector or atomizer. The next video class we will see about fuel feed pump.